But I'd like to ask you why you use drugs.
Different drugs for different things. Right now, I think it's in my interest, in ours perhaps, maybe the interest of the greater good for me to smoke a joint and calm down.
To the extent money can help in meeting the problem of dangerous drugs, it will be available. This is one area where we cannot have budget cuts because we must wage what I have called total war against public enemy number one in the United States, the problem of dangerous drugs.
Well, that's the problem also in environments where drugs are illegal, where psychedelic drugs, marijuana, where those things that you want, they're illegal. And when you buy them, you have to be in contact with people who are willing to risk going to jail to sell you this shit.
But that's the annoying thing, yeah, because, you know, you hear, listen, marijuana is a gateway drug. You start smoking marijuana, you're going to have a heroin needle hanging out your arm by Christmas. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. Drug dealers are gateway drugs. And when a kid can't go to a store that solely sells marijuana and goes to a dope dealer in some trailer in North Carolina, like where I used to go, the guy's like, hey boy, you want to try some, get an 8-ball on top of that, it's great, Coke. And then the next thing you know, you're like, oh sure, why not, I'll try some Coke, I'll try some meth.
That's one way of looking at it, but I could see that someone who's curious and tries marijuana would eventually be curious and try meth, or, you know, if they have friends that are dumb, it's very possible. If
you do meth,
I know this person,
you are a fucking moron.
You are a fucking moron, but what if you're dumb, and what if you're young, and what if you have a friend who just did meth, and he's like, it was crazy, it was wild, I thought you'd get hooked. No, I'm fine. And you're dumb, and you listen to your dumb friend, and then boom, you're doing meth. You know, I can see that, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that one of the main problems is that we have this distrust of the police and the law enforcement, distrust of the lawmakers, and one of the big reasons for this distrust is marijuana laws. If you go online and you look up the statistics and you look up all the studies, you go, well, hey, this shit isn't deadly at all. Not only is this not deadly, it seems to shrink tumors. When you go online, you find the information, it's so completely diametrically opposite of what they're fucking telling you and beating your head in with that you start to disregard what they say about other shit too. And then you try meth because you say, well, fuck, they were lying to me about weed. Maybe meth ain't that bad.
There's never been a more clear indication that they're in on it than soldiers guarding poppy fields. At a certain point in time, you gotta go, wait, what? They had Geraldo Rivera, and he was interviewing one of the soldiers. He was like, yeah, well, we don't like it, but we have to guard the fields in order to get information from these people. And we have to let them live their way of life. Like, what are you talking about, son? Are you really telling me you're letting people grow heroin and you guys are guarding it? But that's it. That's all. You don't have any financial stake in it. And they're over there with machine guns guarding poppy fields. For who? By who? Against who? Excuse me? What the fuck is going on?
We don't know.
Where's the money going? Someone's getting paid, you fuck.
I wonder if weed is going to be legal in 10 years. I mean, I would like to think it would be, but honestly, I'm not sure, because if you go back to like the 1970s, Hunter S. Thompson was giving speeches at universities and shit, and they were talking about legalization of marijuana, and, you know, he's like, oh, it's inevitable. Maybe a decade. That's what he said. Like, maybe a decade. Maybe never, man. In all the shit we know now, the fact that it's illegal now is absolutely preposterous. There's no reason for them to be protecting us from it. You have to be bought and paid by the pharmaceutical companies. That's the only logical reason. Either you don't want to admit that you fucked up in the past, you don't want to rephrase the laws, because then you open up this conundrum of you being guilty of locking people in jail for something that's not really a crime. It's either that, or you're being bought and paid for. Somebody's paying to make sure that you don't have these things legal, because it's clear that you're not protecting anybody.
If there's a one thing that has to happen, people don't put as much stock into this idea because it seems like a silly request. But if you could fix anything about the world, what would you do? I'd make psychedelics regularly available and legal, and devote energy and money to studying them and to distributing them correctly.
Totally.
And get people who are shaman to take people on authentic trips. People who have navigated these worlds, and then when the people come back and they need like help with this reprogramming, you sit down with them, you have groups of people that have also had the experience, sit down with them, discuss what about it did it make you think about yourself, was there anything that it like glaringly obvious you needed to change. And if you have any weird sort of a personality tip, you do any psychedelic, even eat pot, just eat a cookie, man. That's the first thing that's gonna hit you. You think about your creepy behavior.
behavior. If there's ever a way to re-engineer society, it's to shock people out of their current pattern of behavior that they find almost unavoidable. We have to figure out a way to blast people out of those. Right. Shock you out of the pattern, show you yourself from an angle that's not available without the psychedelic, then bring you back and give you something to think about. They're just little bursts of evolution. It's society. You see yourself, you see how you can fit, you see nice, you see positive. I'll see you in a couple months.
Nobody ever did blow and went, yeah, I had all these problems, I did a bunch of blow, and then it fucking worked out.
Yeah.
In the history of the world, that's never been said.
Yeah, that's not good. That stuff's bad for you. That stuff fries your fucking noggin.
Any questions?
Is that the next stage of evolution? Is the next stage of evolution the idea that people have gotten to a point technologically where we can start to join together as one thing again? You know what I'm saying? Like that there had to be a certain peak of competition to get us to a point where we have created some really boundary dissolving technology. And when that point happens, then through that very technology, as in the internet, people slowly start to assimilate to some level of understanding and awareness that wasn't previously achieved because there was this constant state of competition to try to get to that technological point. There's a law or a rule or an ethic to the universe, and that's that things keep getting more and more complex. Things don't seem to simplify. Right. Nothing in our lifetime does, at least. Nothing that we can observe over the course of the life of the Earth does. From the Earth cooling to the Earth developing single-celled organisms to multi-celled organisms and flowering plant life after the Yucatan crater. I mean, everything just keeps getting more and more and more and more complex to the invention, of course, of electronics. And that's where things have gotten really particularly bizarre. Because if you look at life and you look at electronics and, you know, you were objective, you were not a human being, you were not a carbon-based life form, you were just something without form that disseminates information, something that looks at all the data and comes to a conclusion. Well, if you looked at the human life on this planet, and then you looked at the life of technology, man, I know technology doesn't have cells, but goddamn it, isn't it growing with us, and isn't it evolving with us, and aren't there dead ones that are just laying around, just like old fossils, and that Apple II computer that you have sitting in your fucking garage, and when you turn on, it doesn't really work anymore, but you still keep it, and we have a symbiotic relationship with this stuff now, whereas, you know, like, I've talked about this many times, I leave the fucking house without my phone, I'm scared, I am lost in the world. I am such a little bitch. You know, I'm like, what do I have to call somebody? I'm terrified that I don't know anybody's phone number anymore. I know like 4 or 5 people's phone numbers. Right. You know, so if I went to a payphone, good luck fucking finding one.
Have you seen the
Transcendent Man?
Yes, you saw that.
Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Amazing.
It's Kurzweil.
Ray Kurzweil, they call him a futurist, and he's responsible for many, many patents. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. He is a huge proponent of the idea of the technological singularity. And the idea behind that is that one day artificial intelligence is going to literally and virtually come alive, and we're going to merge with it somehow. We are either going to be downloaded into computers, or consciousness is going to be replicated and indistinguishable from our current consciousness, and that will be downloaded into computers. And though our biological body will die, our electronic signal that is our consciousness that has been recreated, like, you will copy your mind, you will copy your consciousness,
like your soul.
Yeah.
The singularity is not just that point where we achieve human level of intelligence in a machine. I mean, that will start a new revolution where these machines will continue to grow exponentially in power. They'll be able to actually improve their own software design. By 2045, we'll have expanded the intelligence of our human-machine civilization 1 billion-fold. That will be a singularity.
Life is almost completely connected to technology, and it's a very, very short time that this has happened.
And that's where you run into a problem, because once you start getting to that state that you're talking about, we've been asked to believe a lot of stuff, kind of like you ask your kids to believe when they're growing up, and you do it to keep them safe. But eventually, your kid knows. We still have kings. We have kings and queens, and you're expecting people to keep believing this king is any more special than anyone else, and he's in the bloodline of some what? What are you talking about? I gotta keep playing this fucking masquerade party? It's like that kind of stuff where where people are like, okay, so you're a president? Oh, I get it. Okay, so I guess I'm supposed to believe that there's a government, which is, 120 old men in a room. I'm supposed to believe they're the ones who know how to do everything and that system's the right way. And it's like, I'm not sure if you really represent the real authority of the world, but how are you going to convince those old fucking drooling men shitting their pants, getting payoffs from the tobacco companies, writing bullshit laws? How are you going to like convince them, you know what, do you guys mind going home and we're going to get some young people in here because they understand the world?
We do understand the world, but we don't understand the economic system. You know, when you read shit like Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and you see that we go only into countries that have massive natural resources that we want to stockpile and control, it makes you very skeptical about motivation.
At what point do you go from looking at the world and seeing some fucked up shit going down? What point do you go from talking about this shit to actively trying to fight against it? We have a bot Congress. He said that Congress is in the pocket of corporations. Whether this is true or not, I don't know. But I did read, if you go to Boehner's Wikipedia page, it talks about one of his controversies around him. There was a big vote coming up against tobacco, and right before the vote happened, he went and passed out checks from Big Tobacco on the floor. He passed it out publicly. So that guy's bought. We have what's called a bot Congress. We have our leaders, many of them are in the pockets of the corporations. Their decisions aren't based on the will of the people. Their decisions are based on what's better for the corporations and the mega rich. And at what point do we as a people make that stop? When does it happen? Guess what? Democracy didn't work. Didn't work. They beat it. They figured it out. Of course they figured it out. It's like the Rubik's Cube. You do it enough times, somebody's gonna fucking figure out how to beat the Rubik's Cube. The fucking founding fathers talked about this very thing, the possibility of this kind of thing happening. It happened. Now what do? You sit and drink Starbucks and buy your fucking iPhone and fucking play video games and get on a podcast from time to time and whine? Or do you fucking do something?
The reason lobbying has become such a force is essentially because as the government becomes bigger and has more influence, you are going to have industry that is going to find a way to influence that power structure. So now you have a county like Potomac, Maryland. Do you know what they are? They're all government lobbyists. Isn't that amazing? It is a group of people from all different kinds of industries that live there and do whatever they can to influence their congressmen in their state.
To me, it's one of the two great things about politics that have always fascinated me. That's one, and two is cigarettes.
So there's a building in Washington, the Department of Health, and the Department of Health has a huge campaign to get people to stop smoking. You go up 3 flights from there, or whatever it is, but it's in the same building, and you have the Department of Agriculture. You know what the Department of Agriculture does? It pays farmers to produce tobacco because it's called a subsidy. Interesting, isn't it? So you got one floor that's paying farmers to grow tobacco because they have a strong lobby. And then if you go down 3 floors, you've got the Department of Health, which is trying to get people to stop smoking. But guess what? It's the U.S. government, baby. So it's called fucking madness.
It is
and
madness.
That's why if you don't educate yourself on how the government works and what the history of expansive government is, you're going to pay a price for it out of your pocketbook and with your freedom. We're always going to face challenges as people and as a world, and those challenges may very well bring into question our own survival. I don't think so for a long time. I don't know.
You know what's really changing the world? This thing we're on right now, the internet. This is the big change.
Very much.
The way we are right now, our parents were never like this. These conversations were never held.
And it gives more potential, Joe, for the notion that all of us could get together and springboard into an idea.
And
a major shift in consciousness.
With something like this. Like right now, live, there's 2,000 people listening to us live. And this is a tiny fraction of the amount of people that will listen to us over the next few months.
Right.
You know, it's going to be hundreds of thousands of people. And these people, when they start looking at the world the way you're talking about it, the way, you know, stepping back and describing it, saying, what is it? What is it to live with passion? What is important in this life? What is the fun? Where's the enjoyment? Where's the real, true passion in this world? Like, what is it for you? What is it for you? And if you don't fucking find that, your life's not going to be fun.
That's right.
And if don't get saddled down by debt, don't get caught up in a lot of
but also
important
on
things.
Piggybacking on that great point is you've got to find a way to keep yourself inspired.
Yeah.
Find ways. I don't care what it is. Just
truly
around.
be doing what you enjoy doing.
Yeah.
Life is temporary, and we all need to wrap our fucking heads around that. If we all just step back, this whole world is moving on momentum, and that is our number one problem as a race. We're moving in the way that our ancestors have been moving, and no one ever just stops and goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. whoa, let's just settle down and talk this over. The only way that's going to happen is the kids that are in college right now, who are listening to shit like this, who are going online and researching the world and looking at things in a way that we never had the ability to, and the access to information that we never had access to. And they're getting a chance to see the world from a fresh eye and fresh perspective, and realize that this is some weird thing where we're all running in the same direction, hoping that someone knows where we're going. They're the future. You college motherfucker with the bong right now. This is for you.
And the
change the world. What the fuck? Who cares? The Fear Factor guy and the guy from The Hangover 2
Ladies and
are telling you how to run this world. I blame the weed.
This has been a good podcast. But it's true.